Hello, it's Martin from Wisely Automotive, and in this video we will be taking a look at the driver assistance systems of the Porsche Taycan. We have done something similar with the Tesla Autopilot system, specifically the full self-driving package and how it stacks up to the other levels. And the feedback was that you would like to see something similar of other car manufacturers and other models available on the market. Despite many people comparing the two, the Taycan is a very different car to something like a Model S, but at the end of the day they are priced very similarly, so people would be probably cross-shopping them. So I will leave the video with the Tesla in the top card above my head, and let's get into the Taycan itself now. As standard, all Taycans come equipped with a front-facing camera mounted in the windscreen. That gives you the core active safety features. So specifically, if I go into the vehicle menu and into assistance, we have got the basic assistant, which gives you the front collision avoidance braking and the emergency stop function, meaning should you become unresponsive, the car should stay in its lane and hopefully call the emergency services. Likewise, we have got lane keep assist. If you find it too annoying on, for example, narrow country roads, there is a dedicated button at the end of the stalk which can disable the driver assistance features very easily without having to dig through the menus. And if we go into the more detailed menu, you can see that you can drill down with the settings in terms of how aggressive the system should be and whether you want a speed limit set or anything like that. This particular example is equipped with the adaptive cruise control, which can be very easily spotted from the outside because it requires the radar sensor in addition to the front-facing camera, and the radar is the little dome in the front bumper. So unlike with regular cruise control, you essentially set the maximum speed and the car can slow down to any speed below that to match what's happening ahead. Rather confusingly, there are two more packages worth mentioning, and that is Porsche InnoDrive, which is often abbreviated to PID, and the lane centering assist. I forgot the official marketing name for it. If you have a car which is equipped with the adaptive cruise control, you can unlock those two features later through an over-the-air purchase on the My Porsche portal, and you have a choice of either a subscription or a one-off purchase, and that stays tied to the car. InnoDrive is basically just one layer of intelligent control above the adaptive cruise control in terms of speed regulation only. Whilst I was waffling, Arthur was on his laptop and he made the purchases of the InnoDrive and the lane centering, which this car was not equipped with from the factory. So we got a pop-up in the infotainment system basically saying that the car needs to be shut off and left off for about 10 minutes with nobody inside, and it will download those features. So let's do that and then we can get going and I will show you how these features work in practice. Okay, so I jumped into the car a couple of minutes later. I got a pop-up notification saying that updates have been installed, and if I click the button at the end of the driver assistance stalk, I can now get into a menu in the instrument cluster, which gives me the options to use a speed limiter, adaptive cruise control, or the full-on Porsche InnoDrive, and to enable or disable the lane keep assist separately. So everything is on now. That's the best we can do. The way you can tell is that you've got a little PID symbol at the bottom of the screen, which, as mentioned, stands for Porsche InnoDrive. So the car should be able to predictively adapt to speed limits. I can double check the settings and you see now we have a separate Porsche InnoDrive subcategory, and I will enable consider recognized speed limits, which will automatically use the data from the camera and the GPS to adjust the speed. Strangely, even after double checking the settings, it has become clear the active lane keep assist did not activate, but at least with the InnoDrive setup, I get going to get back to London at a reasonable time. Weather conditions truly terrible, lots of rain and spray on the road, but no standing water, so let's see. Set cruise control. Porsche InnoDrive is activated, I get a pop-up in the screen. Next thing to try is to go for an overtake. So I will indicate now. Taycan is immediately accelerating to match the speed of the vehicle in the next lane, and I've smoothly moved over. So it doesn't do the lane change maneuver for you completely, but it lets go of the steering wheel essentially. You complete that and then it locks onto the new lane, as you can see by the green lines on the driver assistance indicator. As expected, despite being in the normal mode, we are only using the rear motor to cruise, so the front should be completely disengaged, and we've got some dense traffic ahead. I'm on the middle distance setting, so 2 out of 4. I'm doing a slightly awkward speed here, so I will tuck in behind this car and let's see how smoothly the Taycan will slow down. Perfect, did not freak out at all, leaves enough of a gap, and now if I get any closer it will probably start dropping speed ever so slightly. I could get used to traveling like this. I know we have had the previous Taycan video where I was a bit critical, but I was very honest at the end, and even though there are some things which are a bit odd with the Taycan, and I personally would have preferred them to be done differently, it's a lovely car. And if I had 100 grand to drop on a car, this would be definitely among the top contenders. Smoothly adjusted the speed here as the car cut in front of me, and even though it cut in quite closely, it did not slam on the brakes, and now it will let it slowly gain distance and then maintain that, or 70 miles per hour, which it is set to at the moment. This will be an interesting test because I've got a junction coming up in less than a mile, and we will see whether the system adjusts the speed for the curve itself. By the way, I don't know how difficult this is to see on camera, but the speed changes are displayed around the ring of the driving assistance dial. So you've got the green, which signifies how high it's willing to go, and then we have got the grey, which is the speed we are doing, and the arrow indicating what the immediate target speed is. And it just went for full tilt. No. I mean, it technically can do it at 70 miles per hour, but I think if I had some passengers in the back, they would not be happy bunnies. Okay, so we got the first warning of limited visibility, interesting. But the system is still going, and it recognizes the lanes fine despite there being spray and standing water now forming on the floor. And now you see we've got a 60 zone coming up that's displayed in blue and in the bottom pane as well. So I believe the car should automatically, you see there's a 60 sign, and the car has automatically dropped the adjusted speed to 60, displayed in green. Oh, that was a bit of a phantom brake. Now I need to be in the left lane. So I will squeeze in here. And if I resume InnoDrive, now it's adjusting 50 miles per hour because that's the speed limit on the road ahead. At these low speeds it's not tracking the lane correctly, and there is a yield sign showing me that there is a roundabout. So obviously it will not crash into the car in front, but as long as that's clear, I am not touching the pedals, the car is going on its own. And it's taking a while, a bit hesitant, but nicely done. Up to 50. So to recap, what happened is that the car slows down for roundabouts and yield signs and stop signs, but you need to apply the brake yourself if you actually need to yield to oncoming traffic. But you see it was going quite slowly and there was a gap, so I just let it do its thing, and it negotiated the roundabout without any pedal input from me. I'm a little bit disappointed by the lane centering, because on a road like this, yes, it's a bit narrow, but it's not recognizing the lane at all, whereas Autopilot would have done totally fine here. Not quite sure whether that's a matter of which settings I have set, but if we go into assistance, lane keep assist is on, and of course, as I said, that the indicator went green and now it has locked onto the lane and dropped off. And now it sees the left lane only, not the right lane, even though it's a double white line, which is quite well painted, so this really should not be an issue. What I'm impressed by is how smooth it is. So even though we have got hills here, the accelerator application is absolutely silky smooth. You can't really feel the car transitioning from throttle to brakes and vice versa, coasting. With InnoDrive, the car does know the topographic profile of the route. The predictivity should mean that the car is not only comfortable to sit in and be essentially driven, but also should squeeze out the maximum range, because it knows precisely the moment when to coast or when to regen. Going over a hill crest, and we've got traffic slowing down because there's someone turning, and no panic. This used to be one of the scenarios which early adaptive cruise control systems would really freak out because they could not see what's behind the hill, but this one handled it beautifully. There are some very interesting videos by Tesla on how they do artificial intelligence predictions of the road based on the curvature, and it's very similar to what a human brain does, because essentially if I see the first 2/3 of the curve, I can then kind of estimate where the rest of the road continues and adjust my speed and steering angle on the entry into the curve, instead of doing very many micro adjustments within the curve, which is not very comfortable. This was a good example, even though the water stayed on the windscreen, no issue with the adaptive cruise. So maybe Elon is wrong. You need to have a radar in order to get a reliable adaptive cruise control system. I'm saying that because Teslas have recently had a couple of software updates, and all cars equipped with Autopilot 2 hardware now are basically vision only. So the radar, even though it's present in the vehicles, is disabled, and the Autopilot only relies on camera data. That was an interesting situation there, if you noticed. So the car thought we entered a national speed limit zone, and then immediately after that was a 50 sign. However, that 50 sign was clearly not mapped in the navigation system and the navigation data, because the car, instead of slowing down in front of the speed gate like you legally should, it only started slowing down once it recognized that we passed a different speed limit sign. So something to keep in mind, because if you get any speeding tickets, it's still on you. This is a level 2 system. You are fully liable for the control of the vehicle. Okay, so it knows that this is a 60 zone coming up, but it also should know that we are coming up behind stationary vehicles. It slows down well. And this last bit is always important, how smoothly. I mean, there was a bit of a jerk at the very end, but totally fine. Ready to drive off. Let's see, will it automatically keep going? Yes. And will it shoot me into the intersection, or will it manage just fine? Yes, that was very fast. So this is a situation where I would have personally liked it to apply the power a bit more gradually, because based on the GPS data, it should know that I am making a turn. Let's see, let's overtake. I will give it a bit of a push with the accelerator. So yes, at any point you can override what the system is doing by either pressing the accelerator, and that's only a temporary change. So like there, if I want to pass someone a bit quicker, I can just give it a little nudge, and when I release the accelerator, it still is in adaptive mode. But obviously, just like with normal cruise control, the moment I tap the brake pedal, everything goes off. And it knows that the national speed limit has changed to 60 miles per hour because the dual carriageway has ended, and now we are on a single carriageway. Excellent. So basically all I have to do is steer, but other than that, this is lovely. Let's see what the navigation system is saying. Arrival with 25%. So despite the rain, the estimate seems to be very accurate. Back to the trip. Yeah, cruising on the rear motor despite the slippery surface. Obviously, given we are driving at a constant speed, even the rear has plenty of grip, so no need to engage the second motor. Traffic slowing down. Taycan doing so smoothly as well. And now the question is, did not get confused by the car on the side. Very important. Keeps tracking the one ahead. Well done. Well done. Beautifully legal, slowing down for the 30, and the moment I cross the signs, I am at 30 miles per hour. Yeah, now I need to brake because it would roll in. Oh, chaos. Beeping. And resume. And again, 40 ahead, and it does this legally even though it clearly pisses off people behind me, is that it waits for the gate, now crosses 40 and now starts accelerating. So it's the proper way to do it, but it doesn't drive like other people do the same. Now we've got national speed limit coming up, it knows that it's 60, so it waits, it holds 40 until the sign and then starts smoothly applying power. It's a shame it's so busy, because without the traffic I would have liked to see whether it slows down for any of the bends, but to be fair, all of these are quite gentle, so it would probably just take them at 60 miles per hour anyways. So now the vehicle ahead is slowing down, and this is an Achilles heel of all adaptive cruise control, so come on, let's go. Yes. I took over there because it was just taking forever and I don't want to get rear-ended. So it's an Achilles heel because the car slows down and it does not recognize that the car ahead has already left the road and is not in our drive path, and it still keeps on going slowly and only after a couple of seconds starts accelerating. Anyways, roundabout. Nicely. Okay, the brake pedal just moved on its own and it's clear, so I'm not doing anything. And I am taking the second exit, so the car is holding the speed on its own indicator and now starts accelerating, but based on the steering angle, slow down. Come on, you can go now. And now goes for the full 70 miles per hour on a dual carriageway. Yes, smoothly adjusted to maintain a safe gap behind the Tesla. Now Tesla is gone, so let's go, 70 miles per hour. Yeah, smoothly accelerating. Car stopped on the side, but Porsche not confused by it at all. Good. And yet, to be fair, I think I covered most of the main points. So I will just kick back, relax, and if anything interesting happens along the way, I will keep you updated. Of course, I was expecting nothing, but there was an interesting situation. So a car was turning right and was stopped in the road, but technically speaking was in our lane. However, the Porsche kept on tracking the correct vehicle ahead, and as I moved around it, there were no issues, no slamming of the brakes. However, I am wondering, had the same thing happened and I was turning right, it would be a pretty nasty stop I would need to do because the car would just keep on going. So this is a reminder, even though these systems are getting very, very good and close to perfect, and it's very easy to trust them, you can't fall asleep, you can't be on your phone, always be paying attention to the roads. This was a beautiful smooth stop at the traffic lights, so can't complain about that. When I see traffic lights, the car cannot recognize traffic lights and stop for red lights and goes through green lights. I mean just the traffic queuing up ahead of the intersection. We are going now. I need to, it doesn't say it's ready to go, so I will need to click resume and then the car will move on its own. And it automatically applied hold, so I don't need to touch the pedals and the car will not move. But after about it feels like a 10-second timeout, it goes from ready to drive off to just kind of a standby mode. So if the car ahead starts moving now, I will need to confirm to proceed by the accelerator pedal or by tapping the stalk up into the resume position. So it does jerk a little bit at the end, but definitely not uncomfortable, and honestly I'm liking this. Cars should drive themselves. It's the future. Now, in all seriousness, I know that Porsche is a driver's car and you probably enjoy driving if you get one, and I totally can see that point. But especially on these high-end cars, adaptive cruise control makes such a big difference on long journeys where you just have to keep driving on motorway and pile up miles. So I will collect my final thoughts back in the office, but if you are looking to get one, I would say look for an example which has the adaptive cruise fitted, and then with the InnoDrive and the other options, you can just decide later on whether you want them or not. There's the free trial, which is what we are doing here on this car, or you can get them as a subscription for a couple of pounds a month. You see how you like them, and maybe only use them when you are going on holiday, driving long distances, but then take them off when you drive day to day in the city. The subscription model is quite heavily criticized online, but you can see that in this case it could actually save you money, so I don't think there's a problem, as long as it's still possible to buy the feature outright. 50 miles per hour already detected. This is interesting. So it should really not undertake a car, but like it was just going for it. Not safe. So let's get back into the lane 2 and try to pass. But this is a bit shocking because we are not on the motorway, we are on a dual carriageway, but still you should not undertake a car. So I'm not sure why the adaptive cruise control has not recognized that Prius in lane 2, and it should have slowed down instead of just going under it. Yeah, and again, look, it's undertaking, so that's not good. Come on, Porsche, you're Germans, you should know that undertaking is not good. But also there should be a new feature where a laser comes out and shoots the lane hogger, because I'm pretty sure there is no reason for traffic to be backed up here. It's just someone is hogging the passing lane. And now, even though there's lots of spray on the road and it's very difficult to see the lane markings, the car is still locked in, so green markers on both sides. So this is one of the scenarios where even if you're a good driver and even if you're fully paying attention to the road, it's nice to have essentially an extra set of eyes on the road for added safety. It means the total probability of an accident is lower. Not to mention the comfort aspect, because the workload on me as a driver is much lower than if I had to drive in this kind of weather fully manually without adaptive cruise and no lane keep assist. I continue without anything else to report all the way to IONITY at Beaconsfield services. As mentioned before, check out the separate video we made covering the big WMJ8 software update, including changes to the drivetrain and the charging profile. Before I hit the road again, I tried relocking the car and waiting outside 5 to 10 minutes at a time, with no success at activating the active lane keep assist. As a last resort, I did a hard reboot through the hidden engineering menu, but still no change. It looks like the car cannot fetch the information from the server about enabling the feature. So I just press on with the basic lane departure assist and InnoDrive active. Okay, I've watched through and edited the entire video, so now I've taken some notes and it's time to go through the concluding thoughts. Before we get into the performance of the system itself, we need to discuss the activation procedure. The concept is great that you can unlock something post-purchase, but really this needs to be a bit more slick. While the car was sitting here in the showroom for weeks, a pop-up came up saying that the activation was unsuccessful and nothing more, and we couldn't really cancel the subscription nor try to push the update to the car yet again to establish the feature. So I'm afraid I will make a comparison to Tesla yet again, and the software is really lacking in this respect. Porsche is very much a traditional automaker, and even though they're trying to adopt some of these new features, they feel like they are bolted on top of a legacy system, whereas we feel they really need to start from scratch to get the same level of user experience we are used to from our smartphones and laptops. Moving on from that part, but I will still keep Tesla in the picture to discuss the performance, because this really shows how different the two products are, and in fact how the two companies approach things in general. With Tesla's Autopilot system, it feels like the car is very aware of its surroundings, and you can see this on the display graphics, and it really tries to predict the intentions of other road users, be it pedestrians, cyclists or other cars, and act accordingly. When it works, it's absolutely magical, because when cars are, for example, merging in, it can let them in. Likewise, if the driver in the car next to you is on their phone and they start moving closer to your lane, the Tesla can alert you and move in your lane accordingly, whilst making sure that it doesn't crash into any other traffic. The problem is that with being so sensitive,
it can be susceptible to a lot of false alarms. And especially if you're new to these driver assistance systems, it can be quite disconcerting that sometimes the car kind of slams on the brakes or jerks the wheel on its own without any apparent reason. The Porsche is the exact opposite of that. It feels like it follows much more traditional, rigid programming, which means that it doesn't always understand what's happening around it. But the benefit of that is that the core functionality of the adaptive cruise control, I would say at this point in time, actually works better than on Teslas. It's super smooth, especially from a standstill, and Teslas have taken a step back in this area, especially with the recent software updates. And maybe it's because Porsche has more experience with using the radar, but it's much less susceptible to phantom braking. And even on our narrow UK roads, I only had one slight phantom brake, and it wasn't really even visible on camera because the car dropped the speed by about 1 mile per hour. So overall, as far as the adaptive cruise control goes, the Porsche gets a massive thumbs up from us. To decide whether the feature is worth it to you, we need to discuss the overall value for money. So looking at the costs, the adaptive cruise control itself is £1,238, and it has to be specified as a factory-fitted optional extra. If you're convinced by all of these driver assistance systems, or you just want the latest and greatest technology, you can go for the Porsche InnoDrive and the active lane keep and intersection assist bundle, which is £2,172 from the factory. Now that may sound like a lot, but keep in mind that already includes the adaptive cruise control, so you're only paying £900 extra for the InnoDrive, the active lane keeping, and so on. So overall, we would say that's pretty good value for money. If you're either considering just the InnoDrive or the active lane centering, we would just recommend going for the entire package. Because if you want to unlock the features later, they are split into individual options, and both the Porsche InnoDrive and the active lane keeping are £759 as a one-time purchase, or again each £18 a month. I did mention earlier in the video that you can just put it on for a couple of months at a time if you do a long road trip, for example, but after seeing how finicky the activation can be, I would just recommend maybe going for the free 3-month trial, and if you like the features, just go for the one-time purchase and enjoy them going forward. So to conclude, the adaptive cruise control is a 100% yes from all of us. To recap, what that means is when you set your cruise control speed, that's the maximum target speed, and the car will adjust it based on traffic ahead to make sure that you keep a safe distance to the vehicle in front. As a used car dealer, we may say this may impact your residual value a little bit if you're planning to keep the Taycan long term, because if we browse AutoTrader, there are not that many Taycans with the adaptive cruise control feature, which is very bizarre because the car is very well suited for long journeys, and even budget cars these days, like for example VW ID4s, have the adaptive cruise control feature fitted as standard on every single car. So I think I made it clear that yes, that's an option to go for, and I would go as far as saying that for me personally, it would definitely be a deal breaker to not have adaptive cruise on a £100,000 car in 2023. The InnoDrive is the more questionable package because it gives you a couple of convenience features like being able to adjust the speed to the speed limits automatically before the car even recognizes the speed sign based on the GPS data, and it can slow down for roundabouts, yield signs, and depending on the route topography and curvature of the road. But at this point we are really moving into the nice to have rather than essential category, even at this class of a car. So this is very much up to you to decide whether it's something worth it for you, and worst case scenario, you can just update it later on if you already have the adaptive cruise control fitted. As for the active lane keeping, where the car should hold you strictly in the center of the lane, but the way you know that the system is engaged is that a little steering wheel icon appears in the instrument cluster, and when that's green, you know that the car is actively trying to maintain the middle of a lane. However, given I was not able to activate it, I can't comment on how good or bad the system is, but hopefully that's something we will be able to test in the future. I mean, I will not say no to driving a Taycan at any point. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have a Taycan, let us know how you spec it and whether you like these assistance systems. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one.